Greetings, all Boskasians in Boskasia, the diaspora, and all those others who are curious about what's going on in Boskasia. My name is Jason Boskey. I am the almighty Sigma of the Republic of Boskasia, the ever-expanding enclave in Highlands County, Florida. And this is the weekly address. So let's get the fun stuff out of the way first. Boskasia is expanding. That's right. The Republic of Boskasia has annexed an additional 20 acres that is connected to it. So now the size of the Republic has tripled to 30 acres from the initial 10. This was completed on Wednesday, April 30th. And so with that, the planning and development of the Republic can begin. For those who are not aware, the Republic is, to an extent, you could call it landlocked, of course, being in the middle of Florida, but it is kind of a triple landlock. So a landlock is a nation that does not have a border on a body of water, a navigable body of water, such as an ocean. A double landlocked nation is a nation that is not only landlocked, but it is surrounded by nations that are all landlocked. And then what I'm calling a triple landlock, which is where you can't even get to the property, or the nation rather, without going through another nation. I'm not even talking about airspace. I'm talking about actually having to go through via road or something along those lines to get there. So part of the reason for the annexation was ingress. What we needed to do was, in order to take advantage of the road system of the United States, we needed to find a way to get there without going through another citizen's property. And so by annexing this 20 acres, it gave us access to a right-of-way, not as opposed to an easement, which will give us the opportunity to enter and exit Boskasia without disturbing a citizen of the United States via their own property. So that's part of why we did this. The other part of why we did this is to meet the continued expansion of the plans for the Republic. In addition to the solar array, which will be the main export from Boskasia via electricity into the United States grid, particularly Florida's, but it also gives us the opportunity to broaden the horizon about the things that we want to do. We've already talked about the potential for the Museum of Boskasia, and now we are beginning to think about the possibility of a theater that would be able to seat 20 to 30 people, maybe. I mean, it could be smaller than that. It depends. And of course, as we've mentioned before, the Dark Sky Park, which is the accredited by the International Dark Sky Association, where we would allow people to, with the proper visa, of course, we would allow people to enter Boskasia to take advantage of the night sky and the views of the night sky in a certified, accredited dark sky park. So those are the things, among the things that we want to do, in addition to the observatory that we want to build, a third story, I believe, observatory. It might be second story observatory, but I would like it to be a third story observatory. The Sigma House, where the head of state and the head of government will live and govern from. And then, in addition, several other dwelling units for visitors from other micronations, other nations, citizens, and those interested in Boskasia. So these are all of the many things that we are considering doing in Boskasia as we move forward. That is the plan. It is a welcoming place. As long as you believe in the tenets of Boskasia, anybody can come visit, but you are invited to become a citizen of Boskasia if you will move forward with going with the 10 tenets. What are the 10 tenets? Real quickly again: logic, intelligence, curiosity, compassion, contemplation, wisdom, independence of thought, integrity, magnanimity, and relativity. If you can incorporate those 10, then you can become a naturalized citizen of the Republic of Boskasia. So that's how that works. And we invite anybody interested in such things to go for that. Last week, we put out a memo, as it were, a communique for suggestions as to the name of the Boskasian currency. The Bosker didn't go over quite as I had hoped. So I said, all right, what do you got better? And we got a lot of good suggestions. The Bosco was one of them that I really liked. Someone said something to go along the lines with the Chicago roots that Boskasia has. But the one that really appealed to me, and the one that we're going to go with, is the Quanta. Right, and the Quanta will be the singular in this. It'll be Quantas as the plural. I thought about doing quantum and quanta as singular and plural, but I don't like that as much. But I like the reference to quantum more than I like having it as quantum. So quanta obviously is the plural of quantum, but because it doesn't end in S, you can make it a singular just the same. So the Quanta will be the Boskasian currency. BBQ is what we are going to go by, as opposed to the BBK that we had been talking about. And then 1/100th of a Quanta will be a wit, as in I don't give a wit. There you go. So we're going to go with that. It's going to be the Quanta and the wit, and the new abbreviation for the currency will be BBQ, which is perfect because the number 2 export from Boskasia is going to be barbecue, in particular barbecue brisket. So that's going to work out well from a branding perspective, so to speak, for the Republic as anything else. So those are the going-ons in Boskasia as we continue forth. The next step is to build the bridge into Boskasia so that we can access it and we can begin the development process. Thus far, it has been simply a place to commune with nature in the Elvadasholt forest in the northeastern corner. That has been a very nice thing. And we finally saw on our Boskasian webcam the first non-deer to trip the trail cam. I suppose it's a trail cam, not a webcam. We saw an owl. And that was really neat. It was neat to see something else other than the deer within the trail cam. Now that we've got the additional 20 acres, there are going to be more trail cams, including in the northwest corner where there is what the locals refer to as a mud hole. But I'm going to try and figure out why that area does not dry out. I'm hoping that there's a spring in there. There is an underground spring that keeps it watered, because then that is going to become a spring-fed pond in the Republic, which would be fantastic. That would be an absolute fantastic thing. I would like to dig it out and make it a pond anyway, but if it's spring-fed, all the better. That's something that you just luck into. The Republic keeps the mineral rights in the land of the Republic of Boskasia. In Florida, there is this tendency to sign away the mineral rights or have those mineral rights recorded as owned by somebody else. And you'll see that a lot in the real estate. That'll say, the mineral rights do not go with this property. The mineral rights went with this property. So if somehow there's black gold in Boskasia, then Boskasia is about to become a petrostate, and that'll be really cool, honestly. Not really cool for the environment, but really cool for the ability to build out what I want to do. As time goes on, the oil will no longer be as necessary because we are primarily going to go solar in Boskasia. That is the plan. We like renewables. And so, but you got to start somewhere. And if this can provide a little bit of capital to increase the amount of renewable that we can do, sometimes you have to make those kind of compromises in the short run in order to get the appropriate deal in the long run. So that's what we're looking at. It's a pipe dream, but you never know. So that's what's going on. We've spent 10 minutes on the goings on in Boskasia. There will be a debt issuance coming up at the beginning of June, and that will be in Quanta. So you'll be Quantas that you can buy. I suppose, just the fact that I just used Quanta as the plural, I guess that really means quantum is the singular. So yeah, I think that that's probably what we're going to end up doing because Quanta sounds cool as a plural. It does. It means either Quanta and Quanta, like deer or fish, or you go quantum and Quanta. We'll have to figure that part out. So it's an interesting thing as we move forward with this micronation and beacon of free thought and the way that we believe that the world should interact with each other. It's very important that you have some kind of basis for how you do things, some kind of a foundation. And that's where the tenets come from, the foundation of how you make decisions, how you treat people, right? Because oftentimes you run into situations where people do not have that foundation. Everything is transactional. Everything is the opposite of the big one for us is magnanimity, because the opposite of magnanimity is corruption. No, the opposite of integrity is corruption. The opposite of magnanimity is petty, right? And how often in this day and age do you see corruption and pettiness running the actions or controlling the actions of not just leaders, but just everyday people. And part of the reason is petty sells. I've talked about this before. Petty sells. If you're petty online, that's going to get you engagement. And engagement leads to the feels, right? If you feel good when you get engagement, when 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 people are paying attention to what you do, and part of that is driven by the fact that you're doing things that are petty, that is going to be a driver for you, right? Then it begets more pettiness. And so that's something that I strive very hard to avoid, not only with my own personal life, but as it comes to the planning and the governing of the republic. It's to avoid pettiness, right? There's no scores to be settled, right? And make no mistake, I'm not talking about justice here. I'm not talking about, letting everything go because you want to take magnanimity to the extreme. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is, as Chris Rock said, somebody step on your Puma and you're going to do 10 years because you can't let that slide, right? That's not going to fly. Or, somebody cuts you off. So you're going to get out of your car and create a scene and have road rage and things of that nature. Now, sometimes obviously we are emotional creatures as humans, and things are going to happen like that sometimes to us, but always striving for avoiding that is the goal, should be the goal for all humanity. And it certainly should be the goal for those in positions of leadership, because making decisions based on pettiness is not going to be a non-zero sum solution. In fact, if it is a non-zero sum solution, it's a negative solution. Nobody wins in those situations. That's the best that you can do, or at least it's a net negative. That's not good. That's not good for anyone. It's one thing, and I don't always condone it, but when you make a decision, and you know that somebody's going to get hurt, at least you want it to be a net positive for as many of those affected as possible. Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes, like for instance, free trade is a great example, and I've talked about that before. With free trade, there are going to be winners and losers, right? What you want is for the net benefit to be as large as possible and affecting the greatest number of people as possible, right? For instance, the net benefit for the United States, if they enacted a particular trade policy, if it's $3 billion more for 10 people and 150 million people are feeling a $30,000 detriment, and I'm just making those numbers up. I don't even know if that's a net negative or net positive. I didn't do the math, but that's easy. That's a no. Even if the math worked out where it's a net positive for the United States, that's still a no. Too many people are affected negatively to the benefit of too few positively. That is not good decision making in any way, shape, or form. And that's what I fear right now, is that pettiness is really overtaking the entire society in the United States. That's what I see from Boskasia, is how much pettiness. And it's not even just the United States. It's all of social media, which is the whole world at this point. Pettiness is sexy, for lack of a better term. And I don't understand. It just, for most of the world that ascribes to some form of religion, it doesn't make sense to me that pettiness would be so glorified these days. It just doesn't make sense. I can't wrap my head around it. So anyway, that's my soapbox on this one. There are two other things that I wanted to talk about today. The first one was that the House passed, actually the House didn't pass, but the House turned down, if I understand correctly, a bill that would say that ICE, the immigration enforcement group, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I think is what it stands for, that they would not deport U.S. citizens. Now, let's start with, you can't deport your own citizen. Okay, that deportation is something you do to non-citizens, people who do not live where they belong, for lack of a better term, in their homeland. You cannot deport somebody from their homeland. The term is banish. It is not deport. It's banish. Okay, and that is something that the United States does not do, or at least it has not done. But the U.S. House of Representatives would not commit to that. They would not commit to saying that ICE would not banish citizens. Right now, that's not abduct. I've seen some memes going around saying you don't deport your own citizens, you abduct them. Abducting has nothing to do with it. That is just grabbing someone off the street, and whisking them away. You do that, you're doing that whether it's a citizen or a non-citizen. That's still abduction. But what it is banishment. That's the correct word. And that is not something that I believe is within the Constitution of the United States, or any of the laws of the United States, where it is legal to banish a citizen of the United States. What I will say is that because Boskasia does not have any kind of ability to incarcerate, and because Boskasia, at this time anyway, does not have an enforceable judiciary, where if someone were to be convicted of something within Boskasia, you can't convict them because we don't have a judiciary. We will be relying on the United States, at least for the time being, to handle our judiciary. And the flip side of that is adhering to the laws of the United States. And that'll happen for at least a little while. Hopefully not forever, but at least for the time being, it will. We won't banish once we don't have to banish, right? We won't allow our citizens to stand. Actually, it's not even stand trial. It's as they will not be banished from Boskasia once we no longer have to rely on the United States for adjudication of things like that. Now, extradition will occur, right? I mean, that's something that is appropriate. Is that if someone in Boskasia has committed a crime within the United States, we will not stand in the way of extradition. But as far as things that happen in Boskasia by Boskasians, that will be handled within Boskasia, and there will not be a banishment to the United States. Or anywhere else for that matter. I mean, it's not just the United States, it's anywhere else. That won't happen because that's wrong. That goes against integrity. That goes against magnanimity. It goes against relativity. You can't do it. There are things that you should not do to those who have placed their trust and their identity in you. You do not do that. Not as a sovereign nation. I can see that you can make the argument that by walking away from family or friends that you are de facto banishing them. Because you can't send somebody away. What you can do in those instances is you can walk away, and that is not banishment. That is exile. Those are different. They are not the same. So you can, if someone in the United States, and there are so many people who have talked about it, if there are people who want to go into exile, if they want to leave the United States because of what's going on in the United States, that's different. But if you want to stay in the United States and you are a citizen and the United States sends you away, that's banishment. And that's not appropriate in any situation, particularly at the nation that has the highest incarceration rate in the world, right? Where that is, you don't handle overcrowding in your penal system by banishing. You handle it by finding another method of seeking justice. So that one bugged me. I saw that today. And this will probably go up for listening Friday morning. But I saw that today, which is Thursday. And that really, really struck me hard. It really did. That's not something that a functioning legislature should allow occur. Right. And you talk about, and this is the funny thing, and is if you've listened to me a few times, you know that I go all over the place. The reason that you go with a republic as opposed to a democracy, right? And I'm talking about a direct democracy where everybody votes on everything, is in a republic when you are protecting the rights of the citizens, which is one of the cruxes of a republic, and you are electing your officials as opposed to playing off of the emotions of the populace, right? Theoretically, you should be protected from this kind of treatment is the best word I can come up with. We have the United States has the Eighth Amendment. This should fall right in there. And because you can't rely on another nation to adhere to the same values you do, you cannot use banishment as punishment. I firmly believe that. And as the head of the micronation, I will never allow that. It cannot be allowed. It cannot be allowed. It should be opposed at every step of the way. The other thing, and I've only got a few minutes left here, but the other thing that I wanted to discuss is, we know that we lost the Pope, and there will be a new Pope that is elected by the conclave of the Roman Catholic Cardinals. And I saw that Lindsey Graham, and I'm assuming right now that it's authentic. All right. I did not see the actual tweet, so I cannot confirm it, but I saw it fly around a little bit that Lindsey Graham has endorsed Donald Trump for Pope. I'm not going to make a statement about his qualifications for being the head of the papal state. What I am going to say, however, is that if he can be considered for it, because you don't technically have to be a cardinal to become the Pope, why not me? Why not Jason Boskey? I was brought up Catholic. I have extreme reverence for the Catholic tradition. And while I believe that the politics of the Catholic Church over the course of 2,000 years has been one of corruption and power hunger, I guess is really what you'd say. The Catholic Church has been a mess. The Catholic faith, on the other hand, and the belief that it is works that make you holy, as opposed to a declaration of belief, to me, is very strong, right? It's not enough to say that I have been, I have accepted the faith, accepted the mystery. That by doing that, you're acting like you've gotten a hall pass for everything that you'll do ever again, and that does not jive with the Catholic Church. It does not jive with me. I am a firm believer in works. So much so that I believe that if my agnosticism is incorrect, that no matter what deity has been in charge, or pantheon of deities, if you're talking about Hinduism, that the life that I lead, that the tenets of Boskeyism, without having a particular belief in a deity, will qualify me for whatever's next on the positive side. Because I believe that it is what you do. It's what you say also, but it's what you do that defines your goodness. And if you look at the Pope as someone who you want to show off that goodness, that belief in works, in how you treat people, then I believe that I'm just as qualified as any other human on the planet. Now, there are a few kind of problems that are going to go on there. Like, for starters, I do not have enough faith in anything to stand as a representative of any religion, of course. But then again, neither does the President of the United States. And so, but I thought that was interesting that he would be mentioned for the papacy. And if he is, why not me? And so, Jason Boskey for Pope, Almighty Sigma, and His Holiness the Pope, all in one. And you know what? I'm a quarter of the way to being the same size as the Vatican in Boskasia. So we're working our way there. Anyway, thank you very much for listening this week. Hopefully there will be some positive things to talk about in Boskasia and in the world next week when I address you again. Thank you, and have a great day.